You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. Always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. You know, I just want to talk here in the beginning about this Daily Wire versus Steven Crowder feud. This is the most contrived piece of controversy I've ever seen. Contrived controversy, if you don't know what that is, because, you got millennials listening, some wokesters. They may not know what contrived means. Like the world of professional wrestling, when they have good guys and villains that have feuds, that's all fake, okay? This Steven Crowder Daily Wire thing is so fake, and they've wrapped Tim Pool into this. So Crowder's talked to Tim Pool, Candace Owens talked to Tim Pool, the Daily Wire guy put a video up, Ben Shapiro's responding, and every time I open up my shorts feed on YouTube, there's someone that I've never even heard of doing what we're doing, talking about it. This publicity.
Now we're part of it.
Yeah, well, this publicity that Crowder and the Daily Wire are getting is worth more than $50 million because so many people are talking about it. And I'll tell you, I am no fan of Ben Shapiro. He's a never Trumper. In the first campaign, he wrote a column. This was Ben Shapiro wrote a column titled during the first campaign, "Why I Will Never Vote for Donald Trump." And during all that Stormy Daniels nonsense, he believed that Donald Trump, who's a germaphobe, had sex with Stormy Daniels. He talked about this. And, and Candace Owens recently said terrible things about President Trump.
Yeah.
And so I am no defender of those people or the Daily Wire. And that girl that looks like Ben Shapiro that's at the Daily Wire, Brett Cooper.
Yeah.
I was in shock to find out that her whole thing was fake, that she's not really like in her own room, that it's a TV set. I did not know this, So, I'm not a fan of these people over on the Daily Wire, but I'm also not a fan of people recording people's phone conversations without them knowing, like Crowder did and all this stuff. But I saw Crowder on with, I think it was Tim Pool. I saw a couple clips that came up in my shorts feed on YouTube. I think it was Tim Pool. I could be wrong about that, but he was talking about this slave offer of $1 million a month they offered it. Can you imagine the nerve of the sweatshop over at the Daily Wire? They offered him a little more than $1 million a month. I mean, my goodness. I mean, how could they offer so little,
Insulting.
I mean, give me a break. Give me a break, It's such. But when I saw Crowder on, and I'm like I say, I'm not 100%, 98% sure it was Tim Pool, but it was on my shorts, so it was just him. It was just Crowder. And he was talking about how disrespectful they were to him with this $1 million a month offer. I saw the look on his face, and it didn't seem like he was serious. It looked like he was going to break character, like it was Andy Kaufman, out there on Letterman or the Tonight Show talking about it. You guys can look up Andy Kaufman if you know who that is. And I'm just, come on. And there's so many people that are talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of us don't like the Daily Wire because of these never Trumpers over there. I get it. But I'm not going to just take a side on this. And those of you that are, you're being played. You're being played. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think about that.
Either it's totally contrived from the beginning or it's not contrived, excuse me, and they're just running with it. They're getting a lot of publicity, like you said.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's keep this going because we're getting lots of views and clicks and it's, we're getting lots of subscribers. So
yeah, they're all benefiting.
Whatever it is, they're going with it. They're all going with it for monetary reasons, obviously.
Whatever. I just...
It's the name of the game.
The reason I bring it up is because so many people are talking about it because I guess it's like a good clickbait thing to talk about. And we've talked about it a couple times. I did a YouTube short on it myself yesterday talking about it being a contrived controversy. And I get messages, like emails from people like, how dare they offer him this deal? And I'm thinking, how much are you making? Who listening to this program makes $1 million a month? How could you at all? It's almost, Steven Crowder is a comedian. He's very talented. I like Steven Crowder. And think about it. What a troll comedic thing to do, to have people advocating that you are being taken advantage of because someone offers to pay you $1 million a month. You know, and it when you think about it, it's kind of a joke. And anyone that works in the media business, which I do, those conditions of the contract are typical and normal and more than reasonable. You know, I mean, that's just, I just know how these things operate, and that's the way it is. But I think this is kind of like we're being punked at this point by Crowder and the Daily Wire. With that being said, there's a lot to talk about on the program today. And it looks like President Trump may have picked his 2024 running mate. And there's an article today in Mediaite, and it's also been reported by NBC News. Now, I know these are both liberal outlets, so they can't be fully trusted, but I do think that there's some truth to this based on what we've seen lately. Marjorie Taylor Greene is looking to join Trump's 2024 presidential campaign as his new vice presidential pick. And I think this makes a lot of sense. NBC's Jonathan Allen reported today that multiple people have spoken to Marjorie Taylor Greene and heard about her ambitions. The second-term Congresswoman has managed to align herself with top Republican Kevin McCarthy in the House. And Steve Bannon told NBC that Greene is not shy about wanting to be Trump's VP and believes she's currently on the short list.
I'm sure she is.
She sees herself on the short list for Trump's VP, paraphrasing Cokie Roberts, when blah, 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 blah. A lot of other people just quoted saying the same thing. Well, this whole thing with Kevin McCarthy was this speaker battle was settled when Marjorie Taylor Greene's cell phone rang. She held it up and it was Donald Trump on the phone. Yeah. She handed the phone to Matt Gaetz. It was all over. And then we realized that Donald Trump is really the Speaker of the House and that Marjorie Taylor Greene is his senior representative in Congress who was working both sides, right? The establishment and the MAGA side with Gaetz. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is like his ambassador, direct representative, whatever you want to call it. And, it's unusual for someone like that to be a nominee. Most of the time, we're in a different age now, but typically when someone is picked to be a running mate, people don't vote for the vice president. They vote for the president. And usually they pick a vice presidential running mate, typically, who's going to bring them something, a group. Like Obama, they say, picked Biden because he had the unions in his back pocket. That may be true. I don't know. He had Russia and China. I guess he's in their back pocket. So, but yeah, so, and Kennedy picked Lyndon Johnson because Lyndon Johnson was the senior senator from Texas, and he brought Texas in the South, and because Kennedy was a northern. There's been so much migration, people in this country.
Kennedy was a Yankee.
That's right.
He needed somebody from the South.
That's right. Because there's been so much migration, it's hard to pick someone because they're going to deliver you a state like in the old days, But Georgia's pretty important, and that's been a tough state for us the last couple of times.
And you know what? I
don't know how popular she is overall in Georgia.
Probably very popular.
Well, she's popular in her district.
But it doesn't always work. Like Mitt Romney had Paul Ryan. He couldn't even deliver Wisconsin.
That's right. He lost his own state. That's right.
And you have so it doesn't always work that way. That's got to be pretty humiliating.
But I like the idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I know some people...
Yeah, we've talked about it before on the show.
Some people say this person, they say that person. I mean, obviously, our first pick is Ron DeSantis, but it's not possible because they both live in Florida.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
So that cannot happen, unfortunately. So it can't be Ron DeSantis. I mean, there's a lot of people we like. Everybody likes this person or that person.
Do you think Ron DeSantis, because a lot of people talk about it, they don't seem to be talking about it as much. And in all honesty, reality, do you think he's going to run in the primary against Trump?
No.
I don't either.
No. I think
he'd be crazy. He's a young guy. I think he'd be crazy
to do it. He's in his 40s. He's got a long time to go.
Yeah, he's a big threat to Trump, and Trump will...
No, I think they're still friends.
Trump will take him to the woodshed.
I think they're still friends, and Governor DeSantis has said multiple times he would not run if Trump is running. It would be political suicide.
I agree.
He'd be forever on the MAGA S list. And
he definitely needs to wait.
I mean, no, that would, and I don't think he wants to do that because, he's a winner. He's never lost anything. And if he goes up against Trump, he'll lose. Then he'll be a loser. So no, he's not going to go up against. I
agree.
The thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, that's important is that she is feisty.
Well, yeah, she's feisty, and she doesn't hold back. How she feels. She's not afraid to say things and do things that need to be said.
Could you imagine her on The View if they had her as a guest on The View?
Oh, they would never do it. If
she's running for vice president, you don't think they'd have her on?
No, I don't. I think you are going to see a continued media shutout of Trump and anybody. It'll be interesting when he gets back on Twitter in June, how the media handles him. Because right now, there's like across the board boycott of him. And the reason they're going after Newsmax is because they carry Trump. They interview Trump. They have his rallies. They're a pro-Trump network. They help him. They get lots of views from it. So they're trying to get rid of Newsmax because before he starts really campaigning, because they don't want him to have any platform, but he will have Twitter, which is bigger than all the media outlets combined. He has almost 90 million followers, and he will reach the masses that way. Then there's also right side broadcasting and other avenues.
What I'd like to see Trump do is start to tease the idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene being his running mate, to start to get that going. She will be out there doing press conferences, taking on the media. She'll be taking on all these trolls on. So it'd be amazing.
I think he should announce it early.
Yeah,
I really do. I think if he announced it,
that she's going to be his running mate,
yes,
like now,
I think it would give him the momentum he needs. She's very popular. She's young. She's full of energy.
Yeah.
She's controversial in a good way for MAGA. She's definitely MAGA. And I think that if he announced early this year, not next year, this year, that she's the running mate and they campaign together, I think that would give him a huge boost. And it would definitely give the media something to talk about. It would be amazing. They could not help themselves, Brian. They could not help themselves.
Yeah, just what Kathy was mentioning with Newsmax is I want to talk about this. What happened, it was announced by DirectTV that they are dropping Newsmax TV. And Newsmax TV is amazing. And the reason I believe that DirectTV is dropping them is because they carry the Trump rallies.
Absolutely.
And they are the only news outlet that carries the Trump rallies. The Trump rallies are totally blacklisted by Fox and everybody else. In fact, when they carry the Trump rallies, sometimes they're on Fridays and sometimes they're on Saturdays, occasionally on Sundays when they're in this last campaign. But in a presidential campaign, they're going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When Newsmax has carried the Trump rallies, they have beat Fox News in the ratings each and every time.
Oh, I'm sure Fox is behind this.
So that's what I think happened.
Definitely.
And this is...
They could be threatening DirectTV.
Yeah, well, yeah. And, the MAGA Republicans in Congress are going to call in the DirectTV executives for a hearing, and they'll be under oath. And the Republicans that just took over the House are pretty upset about this. And some of them have said, well, we're not going to have a platform. MAGA Republicans won't have a platform without Newsmax. Well, what's going to happen is they're claiming it's financial, so in ratings. So what they're going to demand, and this will all be, through congressional orders and everything, they have to do this. The DirectTV executives are going to have to bring with them and produce to Congress all the ratings and how much they pay and how much they make from all of their channels.
But what is the law on this? You're in the media, but I don't know how much you know about television, but are they required to carry certain things, DirectTV? I mean, is it?
I don't think they're required to carry Newsmax.
I don't either.
No,
I don't think there's much. They might investigate it, but can they really stop them? It's a company. They don't have to carry it if they don't want to. I mean, they don't have to carry Playboy or HGTV if they choose not to.
I don't know. Does the Playboy channel still exist?
I don't know, but I'm just saying, can a company like that choose what net stations they want to run on
Well, they
platforms?
probably can, but it's important to expose them for what they're doing.
No,
so
I agree.
If there's a hearing and we find out that Newsmax, and I'll tell you, Newsmax is number 4 in the ratings in cable news, but on DirectTV, that's overall. On DirectTV, they may be beating CNN and MSNBC quite a bit. And we don't really know this. You know, when DirectTV dropped One American News, and I know some of you are big One American News barely exists anymore.
Yeah.
80% of their viewers were on DirectTV. I don't know what percentage of the viewers to Newsmax are on DirectTV.
Yeah, it was a death blow.
But it's a lot. It may not be 80%, but it's a lot. And we have Newsmax TV on our cable system. We have Verizon. And a lot of people
we have Comcast.
Oh, Comcast?
Xfinity.
Oh, we have Xfinity?
We have Xfinity.
Okay, we have Xfinity. Okay, but we have Newsmax on Xfinity.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of you listening to the show will say, well, who watches the news on television? Who watches cable news? I get everything online. You know, this is a podcast, so you're listening to this on some type of online platform, whether we're on all the podcast platforms, we're on YouTube, wherever you're listening. You're an internet person. Most people still get their news and information from television and cable news, okay? Just because you don't doesn't mean that the vast majority of people don't.
Who watches news regularly, particularly politically, it's all political, but it's mostly older people that watch the news on a regular basis. I would say like over 35. I don't think young people, when I was young, I didn't watch the news. I mean, maybe once in a while I'd watch the nightly news. Of course,
it was terminal.
There wasn't as much, but only older people really are news junkies, I would say overall, and that demographic.
Over 45.
And a lot of them do watch television and get it from their, their more old school.
Newsmax, let me tell you, we lose Newsmax, which we're going to probably do on DirectTV. That is a huge blow to the MAGA movement and Trump. Yeah. I love Newsmax. Newsmax's corporate headquarters is just a couple miles from our front door. Okay, I drive by it almost every day. And they have studios here in Florida. The corporate headquarters is here in Florida. They have studios in New York too. But they are very good. In particular, Rob Schmidt and Greg Kelly are the two best cable shows on television. The two of them, they're amazing.
It's a shame because that's going to be pretty bad. DirecTV's on a lot.
Well, but they're going to get exposed. They're going to get exposed, and I know they've got.
Yeah, but that's not going to stop them from canceling them.
Now, I watch Newsmax quite a bit, and mostly what I do is watch it on YouTube because they live stream on YouTube. But being off television, that's going to be tough. What
they're doing is they're punishing Newsmax because Newsmax started to embrace Trump.
That's right. Well, it's ratings gold for him.
Well, it is, but they started to carry his rallies last year, and they started to embrace him, and they have a lot of people on that defend him, like you said, Kelly and the other guy, Rob Schmidt.
Yep.
And they're punishing that network because of their, embracing of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so standing with Newsmax is very important, and I know. Listen. No one likes everybody that's on any channel, and I'm not happy with everybody. I don't love everybody on Newsmax, but that's okay. Overall, I love what they do. Like I say, Rob Schmidt and Greg Kelly have the two best shows in cable news. I love that not only do they carry the Trump rallies, they send a team like Right Side Broadcasting to a lot of them, led by John Bachman, who's like their news director.
Yeah.
He's like runs the whole programming end of it.
Like even just ignores that Trump even exists.
That's right. You'll be They're canceling him.
Hard pressed to hear his name or any reference to him at all these days. Even on Hannity and Tucker, really, they just talk about other issues.
Now they and the Trump rallies. Tucker and Hannity. I don't hold this against the two of them. Okay, they don't own Fox. Right. They work for Fox.
Exactly.
So the fact that Fox doesn't carry the rallies, I don't blame them for it. And I know a lot of people say, well, they should leave.
Easy for them to say.
Not only are they making tens of millions of dollars a year,
crazy.
They have contracts with no compete clauses. Right. They just can't leave and go across the street to Newsmax.
They'll end up like Shepard Smith.
Yeah. They'll be off the air for a year or 2 years or maybe even longer, and then be on some third-rate place where there's no one watching. And it's awful. Now listen, we're going to take a quick break. There's a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll be back right after this. Now available on Amazon is the book, Your Happiness Depends on Your Choice. Are you on the right path or the wrong path? Our universe is always moving and evolving based on precise, absolute, and unchangeable laws. If everyone proceeds in accordance with the laws, they are most definitely headed for perfection, and they will reach a happy, successful life, a life filled with peace. Whatever path you choose and have persistence and perseverance treading it and have no intention of changing your path, then the forces and facilities in the universe will accompany you and help you tread that path. But how do you choose the right path and walk with perseverance? The answers to those questions and more are found in the new and must-read book, Your Happiness Depends on Your Choice, available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover editions. Order your copy right now. Add a gorgeous statement to any room of your home with a macrame wall hanging from Emmy Yarn. That's all one word on Etsy.com. Emmy Yarn's beautiful handmade macrame and yarn wall hangings make it easy to add warmth and comfort to your room decor. All wall hangings from Emmy Yarn are unique. They're handmade with love and shipped with care. They feature a variety of colors and styles, so you're sure to find a piece that you love. These gorgeous wall hangings make perfect artistic additions to any room, and they're the perfect thoughtful gift for someone you love. Visit Emmy Yarn, that's all one word, EMMYARN on Etsy, and grab yours right now. Emmy Yarn on Etsy. Want to know where all the bodies are buried? Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool. Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob. Welcome to Mob-Ammy Beach. This book is a fictionalized account of Miltenberg working at a mob-owned Miami Beach hotel in the 70s. If you're a fan of The Godfather, Goodfellas, or The Sopranos, you will love this story that's full of colorful characters and wisecracking wise guys. It's a story with everything from Playboy bunnies and weaponized parrots to shattering the glass ceiling and getting away with murder, all in paradise. This is a wise guy tale you've never heard. Surrounded by pools, the trick for Bobby Moskowitz was not slipping in the one thicker than water. Bobby lived to tell the tales, and now you can read all about it. The funniest mob novel since Jimmy Breslin's The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool. From author Robert Allen Miltenberg, available on Amazon. Order your copy right now.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Okay, so World War III is about to begin. Joe Biden is sending tanks to Ukraine.
Oh, God.
Germany's going to send tanks to Ukraine.
Wonderful.
Listen, to me, what I see going on in Ukraine seems to be pretty much a stalemate. Like, there's not a lot of movement. I've told you guys, I watch a lot of YouTubers that are in Europe and Ukraine. And they're going to the doggy bakeries over there in Kiev. And I tell you guys, watch Pavlo in Ukraine. Pavlo in Ukraine is in his mid-20s. Mm-hmm. Him and his girlfriend are hanging out at grandma's house all the time. I don't see him signing up and joining the Ukrainian army. And he doesn't seem to be worried about the
this is like
Russian.
Wag the dog.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be concerned about the Russian rape gangs coming from for his girlfriend because they just ride around on bicycles with her wearing a bikini all the time. It's Pavlo in Ukraine.
That's
look it up. And
I was reading things about they want to drop a nuclear bomb, and
yeah.
Are they really going to do something like this, or is this just
this war in Ukraine, that Ukraine's just corrupt. Look at all those deals Hunter had over there. We know this, okay? We know it's corrupt. It's a place that before this happened, most people in this country couldn't find on a map, and probably would have a hard time finding it now on a map that was not labeled.
It's a big country. It's a big country. And the left just loved Zelensky. They just love the guy. He, to me, is like a Castro,
he's like
Napoleon type.
He outlaws the churches. He's outlawed oppositional political parties. He's doing all the things that the liberals would like to do here. You know, that's why they like him. They love these oppressive. They love these oppressive guys.
Well, they love Chavez, and they love all those dictators.
And I know they say, "Oh, you love Putin." No, I don't. I just don't. It's not our country.
Yeah.
You know, and Ukraine for a long time was part of Russia during the Soviet Union days. Yeah. And the way I've looked at this thing from the beginning, it's like a civil war. It's like a civil war.
Me too.
And we should be out of it. You know, when we had our civil war in this country, Europe didn't get involved. They stayed out of it. They didn't want anything to do with it.
That's exactly right.
And we've had 2 world wars.
They did get involved in the Revolutionary War, but we were fighting England.
Well, we started that.
So that was different. The French hated the British, so they wanted to help us. But yeah, the Civil War was just, you're right, that was just an American
In the Civil War, the Europeans did not get involved in it.
True.
And then we get involved in their wars all the time, the 2 world wars. And this is how third world wars start. And there's just no purpose for doing this. And I'll tell you the other thing that really I think this is a big deal. There has not been one summit meeting between the United States and Russia. If Biden was a decent person, and I know he's not a decent person. I mean,
yeah, we know he's not.
You know, but there should be a summit meeting between the president of the United States and Putin and Zelensky, and just cut this out and work something out. If Ukraine loses some of its territory, so what? Or they got to have some concessions. Who cares? It's not our war, and we shouldn't be involved in it. And everything they're doing is escalation. And of course, the reason they're doing this is so they can pass more funding. And let me tell you, these Republicans that are running the House now, the House of Representatives controls the money. And it's more powerful than the Senate. They control the money. They have to stand firm on this and cut off any funding that goes to Ukraine. And I'll tell you this also, it'll be summertime before you know it. If any of you have children or grandchildren that are in high school that are thinking about joining the service, stop them. And if they insist, get them to join the Coast Guard. Do not let them join the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, or the Marines, okay? I know the Coast Guard can be deployed in war zones and things like this, but it's they're search and rescue, not search and be destroyed. They're not combat. I would do anything I could to keep my kid from joining the service right now. This is, it really burns me when you see these stories. Why are we sending tanks over there?
I don't know.
I saw one general from Ukraine a couple weeks ago.
He's like fully arming that country. He's like fully arming them and giving them all kinds of weapons and money, and
without trying to cool. That's why I say there should be a.
No, they're not trying to cool it off at all.
You want to try to tone things down. So you go and you have a summit meeting with Putin, and you at least maybe he won't do it, but you got to at least attempt to cool things off.
Yeah.
And they have this position, well, they won't talk to Putin, because the reason they won't talk to Putin is because they don't want to cool things off. Because if they cool things off, you don't need to send more money over there.
No, they want to escalate things.
So it's
been very lucrative for them.
There was a Ukrainian general a week or two ago. He said of the money that the United States has passed to fund Ukraine, about 15% of it has gone to Ukraine.
Of course.
The rest of it, donors.
Exactly. Who knows where? And, well, hopefully, what Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to do, they'll do, which is audit that money.
Oh.
And
I think they will. Because she's got a lot of say in the House. And, I was really duped by Bush and Cheney. I didn't realize what scummy people they were. I mean, how many, we were obviously 9/11, we were attacked. You have to respond to 9/11. But I find it impossible to believe, I even did at the time, I find it impossible to believe that the United States of America could not find some guy, bin Laden, who lives in caves and travels by donkey, that we had to have this major military invasion of Ukraine. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. And we
know they could find him because eventually they did.
Well, when they took out bin Laden, see, I don't buy any of this story about the bin Laden. I think they knew where bin Laden was for years and did nothing. And Obama went in and got him because he was running for re-election and he needed to show that he was a tough guy. And they had a campaign slogan that was at the Democrat convention that year. Bin Laden's dead, GM's alive, because he bailed out General Motors. Remember, they were going bankrupt. Bin Laden's dead, GM's alive. It was their campaign slogan at the Democrat convention that year. I think they came up with the campaign slogan before they got Bin Laden. And they, because, hey, we know where Bin Laden is. Why don't we go and take him out? Yeah. And we can get a big boost in the polls. I think that's what they did, because we had these corrupt Bush and Cheney donors like we have now with Ukraine running everything. These corrupt people in Congress, they wanted we've talked about this. When I was in like middle school, I used to hear people say all the time that and they don't say this anymore, but people used to say this a lot because of the Great Depression and World War II. They say capitalism's the best economic system, but you have to have a war every 30 or 40 years to keep it going, and which is ridiculous. But they said that because people, World War II ended the Great Depression because of all the arms buildup, because everybody was employed, right? The guys went in the military, and the ones that stayed home and the women were working. But that's just a lie. That's just a lie. And what's going on in Ukraine right now is scary, because Putin is crazy, and
they say that he's dying of cancer.
Well, who knows who's going to take over after him? Maybe they're worse.
If he's dying, then he wants to. I mean, I don't know if he is or not, but if he is, he wants to leave a legacy. He, doesn't feel he has a lot to lose if his days are numbered. And if he has less days in front of him than behind him, obviously, well, at his age anyway. Yeah. But if his days are numbered, if he has only a few months to live or a year, I don't know, then could motivate him to possibly do some things he might not normally do, because he feels he's on a time crunch.
Now, there's an article on this Newsmax removal from DirectTV that's in the Post Millennial, which, by the way, the Post Millennial is a very good conservative news site. It's out of Canada. They got a lot of Canadian news, but they got all the American news. And this is just a little bit. I know we talked about this last time, but this is in this article. According to Fox Business senior correspondent Charles Gasparino, people close to Newsmax revealed the likelihood that the news channel would be removed from DirectTV, making it the second conservative news channel to be removed by DirectTV after they dropped One American News last spring. Gasparino said this could set up a political battle with the Republican-led House and possibly Donald Trump against DirecTV's owners, AT&T, which is very liberal, and TPG Capital. According to the Los Angeles Times, Newsmax and DirectTV have been in talks in regards to a new deal that would keep the channel available. The deadline is set for midnight, January 25th.
Well, that's today, I think.
What's today? Today's the 25th.
The 25th, yeah.
Today's the 25th, so this is like today.
Yeah.
We've discussed with Newsmax on several occasions we'd like to offer their programming. However, the network is seeking significant fees that we would have to pass on to our customers. So, when a channel is on any cable provider, they get a little bit of money per viewer or per I don't know how they work it out. So what so this is their excuse. So what the Republicans that are going to that are calling to have the DirectTV executives brought into hearings on this want the fees that they pay all of the channels on DirectTV to do a price comparison to see if the fees that Newsmax are asking for are unreasonable
or comparable
or maybe even less than what lower rated channels are getting paid. And this, I mean, come on, everyone knows they're going to cancel Newsmax because they carry the Trump rallies.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on. Is there any other reason?
There's a full media shutout, but I don't know how that is going to work once he gets back on Twitter and Facebook.
How can he run for president if there's a media blackout?
Well, if he's running, they have to carry the debates. Watch, you'll see them say we're not going to carry debates anymore. I can see that happening. We're not going to have a debate now if Trump's there. But if he wins the primary, which I'm sure he will, what are they going to do? He's the nominee for president. They can't ignore that. I mean, that's like a big deal.
After January, first,
I mean, that's a lot of money for these networks that they'd be turning away during election season.
Before January 6th happened and the campaign was going on, the second campaign, they were not carrying the Trump rallies during the second campaign on cable news, okay? So don't forget that. And then
but now they won't even mention. He's like Voldemort. I mean, they won't even mention his name.
Totally canceled him.
It's like across the board. They say, "Oh, that guy," or the guy who that we all know who we're talking. I mean, they won't the guy who must not be named, like in Harry Potter. You know, like they're gonna blow up in smoke if they say the word Trump.
Well. Yeah, and if you remember, after January 6th, they wouldn't carry him when he spoke even on Fox, and he was the sitting president at the time.
Well, I wonder what's going to happen with him with the DOJ with these investigations. I honestly thought he would have been charged by now.
Well, this Biden document thing has messed that up.
You said insurrection. They were going to charge him with that.
That's still on the table.
I don't know. Are they waiting for the opportune time? Are they waiting for him to win the primary?
No.
Or you know what I mean? Or,
this Biden classified document scandal, they found out about it a couple months before we did, back in November. So that's what stopped that so far. I think Merrick Garland would have already charged Trump with crimes if it weren't for the classified documents.
But they're two separate issues. I'm just confused what they're waiting on. I think they're waiting for the opportune time. I think they're waiting because there's
where they get the maximum benefit.
I don't think there's a statute on when they can charge you. So I think they're waiting until he wins the primary. Maybe. I mean, a year and a half away. So.
Now, I want to take a moment to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, guys. And, your support means a lot. And
it does.
If you would like to become a supporter of the program by being a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the episode description. And there is also a direct link on my website, briancraigshow.com. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you on each and every podcast episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Mike P, Rick, Nick, Wesley, Macho, Rome, Wisconsin, Paulette, Dave, Maria, and Carol. Thank you all for your support. And again, if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description of this and every episode, and a link on my website, briancraigshow.com.
And the Patreons, the difference between that and like if you're a member, which is also great, members get the emojis in the chat and all that. That's really for people who participate in the chat. I mean, you can do both.
That's different. That's the YouTube member.
The YouTube thing. But the Patreon is, for people, you get more behind the scenes of our personal life. Yeah. We post pictures of things we're doing at home and, just what's going on in our day-to-day, if you're interested.
And you also get commercial-free editions of the podcast.
You get commercial-free editions of this show, totally commercial-free. And so those are some of the perks. We have some merch and stuff like that. So it's different than either way is fine. And you know what? You don't have to do either. Just listening is support too.
Yeah.
Just being there. Another great way to support the show, if you can, is to join the chats on YouTube at 6:00 at night where we post the show. And we're there with the chat with you guys. That's another way to support the show, and that's totally free.
That's right.
So whatever you decide to do, we're totally cool with. We totally appreciate it. We really do. I mean, it's amazing. We've been doing the show over 10 years, and your YouTube channel has grown quite a bit. And we really do get a lot of support from you guys and a lot of love from you guys, and it does mean a lot to us. It really does. We really do appreciate it.
And it's amazing.
To take time out of the day to listen.
It's amazing how many of you are in the chat rooms when I'm live streaming in the morning and everything on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we
really appreciate all of you guys that listen.
Absolutely. Truly. Now, one last thing I want to mention before we break is, Diamond from Diamond and Silk. Her cause of death was finally revealed by the family. And they said that I've not quite heard of this before, but let me get down and read exactly what they said. She passed away from heart disease due to chronic high blood pressure.
Sure.
According to a death certificate obtained by the Associated Press. Is that a heart attack? I'm not sure what that is.
When you have, that's what killed Curly Joe from the Three Stooges. He had chronic high blood pressure that he did not manage. And what happens is over time, your arteries harden. It puts great stress on your heart. And you die from complications from that. The arteries harden up. They're not as, arteries are supposed to be flexible and loose. Yeah. and they harden, and then you end up having blockages and all that stuff. And so maybe she didn't know she had high blood pressure because you don't always have symptoms. Most people don't. Yeah. And she could have had it for 20, 30 years, and that maybe she was a smoker. That
you never know.
Who knows? That could exacerbate it. Or maybe she didn't take her medication. So whatever. But that's, in any way, it's just sad. It's just sad.
Oh, yeah.
She's younger than us. The older you get, it's so weird. When you're like a teenager, 50 seems so old. I remember when we got married, my mom was 54. Isn't that crazy? And now I'm 52. And when we got married, I thought my mom, oh God, she's just so old. That's just so far away. Now I'm almost there.
I don't really talk about how old I am very often. I mean, I'm just not into talking about it too much.
It doesn't bother me. It's just the circle of life. But it's funny as you get older, 50 and 60 don't seem so old. 60. That's young.
Not as old as it used to be.
Well, the older you get, It seems that way.
I remember when my grandmother was my age that I am now.
My dad told me when he turned to 80, now he's 85, he said, now I officially feel old. He said, 80 is old. There's no denying it. I said, that's true, Dad. He said, there's no way to sugarcoat it. When you're 80, you're an old person. So we'll say 80 is old. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Well,
nothing wrong with old people. They're full of wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really like to think about it too much.
Well, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me.
The only thing I do like about getting older, though, is there is something to be said for life experience, and you get a better understanding of everything that's going on in the world.
You gain perspective.
Yeah, you have clearer perspective.
Absolutely. And when you get, I don't know what it is when you hit 50, you just don't give a damn anymore. What
do you mean? I care.
No, but you don't care as much what people think, or you don't worry as much. For me personally, I just don't get as upset about things as I used to when we were first married. I get upset over every little thing, and you would too. I mean, when you're young and married, you bicker and fight a lot, and then when you get older, you let a lot of things go. I mean, you just whatever.
Well, you get more perspective on what matters.
Exactly. You learn to choose your battles, and it's not just in your married life; it's with your friends and your family. And you just let a lot of I would argue with my brother about politics when I was in my 30s or 40s. And now he'll bring it up, and I'll just be like, whatever. I don't get into it. I don't discuss it because it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
And I think the older you get, you appreciate time more.
That's true.
And so you don't want to waste your time doing things that you just don't want to do.
And listen, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, there's a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Back after this.
Get ready for an unforgiving dystopian science fiction ride with thrills and surprises. Author Tyler Drinkard brings you a suspenseful science fiction novella, Isolated Domain. Stolen uranium, a partner on the run, and one dark secret. Hare has stolen imported goods for as long as he can remember. It wasn't the most honest living, but in the Conurb, where amenities are scarce, there wasn't much opportunity for honest work. Everything was going smoothly, and Hare kept a low profile until his partner suddenly decided to steal something priceless for himself. Join Hare on an action-packed epic journey as he desperately tries to find his partner while navigating a world full of uncovered secrets. Isolated Domain is a heart-pounding, immersive sci-fi adventure and will have you hooked from the very first page to the last. Isolated Domain from author Tyler Drinkard is available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover editions. Order your copy on isolateddomain.com or visit Amazon to grab your copy right now. Isolated Domain from author Tyler Drinkard. Add some wealthy wisdom and energy to your podcast playlist. Join Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell in her podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth. Each episode dives deep into the money memories of your neighbors, friends, and many famous names. Jennifer interviews guests about how their past money memories molded their future relationship with finances as an adult. You'll listen to the wins and the losses as guests discuss financial infidelities and learn from the stories of those who have been in the same position as you. New episodes are released weekly. Start the year with positive, wealth-attracting energy. Tune into Platinum Talks Wealth, hosted by Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Parents and grandparents, there's a thoughtful bedtime story that you will want to add to your child's reading list. From author John Clay, The Invisible Trap, an illustrated children's story about being aware of your emotions. The Invisible Trap is an allegorical story of a child who leaves the safety and comfort of home. Soon, he's overwhelmed by his new reality. Realizing he's all alone, he has to overcome his big emotions and gain clarity. This is a fantastic book to introduce children to the lifelong lesson of being aware and comfortable with emotions. The Invisible Trap is the effect that limiting beliefs have on our ability to function. This beautifully illustrated children's book embraces integrated psychological leadership theory and will help your child learn emotional intelligence as early as possible. Order your copy right now from author John Clay, The Invisible Trap, available in Kindle, hardcover, and paperback on Amazon.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. You know, I want to talk about these groomers at Disney World, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Kathy and I watched something last night on Disney Plus, and I know a lot of you would be mad at us for having Disney Plus. You know, Kathy and I are big fans of Disney World. We live in Florida. Disney World is in Florida, and Disney World has been a part of our lives our whole life. Now, I'm not originally from Florida, but on my first visit to Florida, I was 5. It was 1976. I went to Disney World. And it was a big deal. So I've been going to Disney World for a long time. You have too.
Oh, yeah. I've been going since the 70s, since I was a little kid.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's really a shame what these liberal wokesters and groomers have done, okay, at Disney. And we were talking on, I think it was on the last podcast, we watched this movie on Disney Plus the other night called Strange Worlds, which is very woke and just was, you know. But then last night before bed, we watched an old special from 1978 or 9.
Yeah, around there. Maybe 77.
It was between, I think it might have been 77, actually. Yeah. So it was between, I think it might have been 77. It was between 77 and 79. And it was The Wonderful World of Disney, which used to be on I think it was on Sunday nights. It was on the weekends at night. And the Mickey Mouse Club, the Mouseketeers, went to Walt Disney World for an event, and we watched it. And I wanted to watch it because I wanted to see what Walt Disney looked like back in the 70s, because that's when we were little kids going there as compared to what it looks like now, you know, just a little walk down memory lane. And surprisingly, one of the Mouseketeers is someone who later went on to be famous, Lisa Whelchel.
Yeah, from Facts of Life.
She played Blair on Facts of Life.
She's always been pretty. She's like Brooke Shields. She's just like born pretty.
So she was one of the Mouseketeers. I never knew that back then because she wasn't famous then. And the Mouseketeers, they're at Disney World and they're off doing their own thing. And I don't know, she's about 11.
No, she's like 13.
13, you think so?
Yeah.
Sorry, don't get on. You know, well, she's about 12 or 13, I'd say. Lisa Whelchel, Blair from Facts of Life. And a lot of you know, she's a big Christian. She has a show now. She's got a thing on YouTube and everything else. She's still around. And they had a thing where her and another girl who's about 12 or 13, they're out by themselves at Walt Disney World.
They're in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, and they start talking about this hot, foxy guy that they are like, wow, he's so foxy. And they show, it's like a 30-year-old man, 35-year-old.
40-year-old.
Think that? Really?
Yeah.
A 30, 35, maybe 40-year-old man. And they had this entire...
Then they went up and talked to him.
Yeah, they had this whole scene where these girls that are between 12 and 13 are coming on to this man who's like 30 to 40 years old. And this is on The Wonderful World of Disney. It was like 1977, 8, 9. I can't remember what year it was. And I was really taken aback by it. It was like really disturbing. Yeah. And I'm sure that I watched that special when it was first on when I was a little kid, because it does seem familiar, you know, the storyline. But I was like 6, 7, 8 years old back then. But I always watched that show, and I watched this. And it was really disturbing and sick to watch. And they didn't have a scene where two of the boys who were 12 or 13 had a thing for a 35, 40-year-old woman. just when these two young girls had a thing for this 30 to 40-year-old man.
I'm surprised they haven't removed that scene. It's a very short scene. And they have disclaimers
Disney Plus right now.
Disclaimers on all their movies. This movie contains smoking. This movie contains
dated
stereotypes of Asians and all this stuff. Here you have a scene that is, very creepy.
And it's still there.
Just creepy.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
And
inappropriate.
So, what this tells you is this. There have always been groomers at Disney.
Because that's where the kids are.
But yeah, anywhere where you have a lot of kids, you're going to have creeps.
That's right.
Now, what's changed, though, is the groomers are no longer hetero. There are all kinds of other things now, okay? And obviously, whoever was grooming those girls
Plus it's Hollywood.
were hetero.
It's full of pedos, too, Hollywood. It's a sick place.
Yeah. I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if back in the 70s, things like that were normal or not. I don't know. We were little kids. I don't think so. But that was on network television.
The guy wasn't even good looking. I mean, not that mattered.
He had a mustache like Tom Selleck.
He wasn't handsome at all.
It was very weird.
I don't know if he was like a guy that worked for Disney. He didn't have a line. Maybe he had one line. And he was just very 70s looking, but not like a guy that they said, oh, he's Foxy. You remember Foxy? But he wasn't Foxy. If you're going to call somebody Foxy, make sure they are. And it was really strange.
Well, they've always been groomers. Is the point that it's not?
They have a big problem there.
It's not new. It's just they've gotten involved in all of these other gender things.
Whenever they have a big pedophile ring bust in Orlando, there's always 3 or 4 Disney employees in the mix. Always, it's a real problem.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, they have like a bust like every year or so in the Orlando. Orlando's a huge city. I mean, it's like huge, and it's a huge area, and they have a bust every few years or a year, a big bust of like dozens and dozens of pedophiles in a network or something, and there's always a handful of Disney employees.
Now, I saw this article this morning, and I just throw this out because those of you that are parents, I don't put much into polls or anything else because I don't, but they make them in the news stories. Listen to this. Only 35% of American parents say it's extremely or very important for their children to have similar religious beliefs to their own. This is done by the Pew Research, which means that only 35% of parents think that it's okay. Like we're Christians, only 35% of parents think it's important for their children to believe in the same religion that they believe in. And let me tell you, when, Kathy and I are Catholic, but we converted to Catholicism, I don't know, about 15 years ago, maybe 10.
I'd say 15, yeah.
Yeah. And our daughter went through the whole confirmation process, and it's hard to get kids to do that. Yeah. And she really wasn't into doing it because most kids aren't. They got to go to class, and then there's a big thing, and it takes like a year, and it's, but we made her do it.
Yeah,
we made her do it. And I think that's that means that parents in this country and I'm assuming this means with like younger kids that are under 18, these parents, that we're losing our religion. And that would explain why we're having all of this gender confusion going on because, religion, if you go to any of the liberal paradises, right, where the socialist and communist run things, they always do away with the church. Right, they always do it with the church because the church has a moral code that interferes with the communists, with the socialists, with the government, and that's one of the reasons Democrats don't like Christianity. Is because there's a moral code that goes along with Christianity that is counter to them, and they want to be the religion that you go to, liberalism. They want to be they want to be the religion, not Christianity.
Well, and parents give kids way too much freedom now. Way too much freedom.
Let me tell you. Okay,
they're afraid to discipline their children.
Yeah, and the reason that the Democrats worry about Christianity and not the other religions is because the other religions are pretty small in the population. There's more Christians, there's more influence. And I'll tell you that if our child was not a Christian, I would not like it. I mean, I would not like it. And I mean, I'm talking atheist or any other religion, I would not like it. And I know a lot of people will say, because I know I'll hear from people in the comments, well, Ivanka converted to Judaism. That doesn't mean she's not a Christian anymore. Okay, what happens, in Judaism, for the children to be Jews, the mother must be a Jew. So oftentimes, a woman who marries a Jewish guy who's not a Jew will convert to Judaism, so the kids will be Jews. It doesn't mean that she's rejected Jesus and she's not a Christian anymore. I assume she still is.
Change my religion for anybody.
Well, I don't think
just wouldn't. I don't understand that.
I don't think that's really changed. I don't think converting to Judaism is converting your religion, because Christianity, I believe, is Judaism, and Jesus is the Jewish Messiah.
I understand what you're saying.
It's not like converting to Islam.
No,
or becoming a Hindu.
Personally, I just would not convert. And if a guy asked me to convert, I would have nothing to do with him. I think it's insulting, unless she just was not a religious person to begin with and didn't care. But I find it hard to believe that somebody who's really religious is just going to give up their religion.
I would have
strange to me.
I would if
so. I don't think she was probably very religious.
If our daughter came home and said she's an atheist, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, anything other than a Christian, I'd be upset about it.
Well, atheists would bother me more than anything.
Atheists more than anything, but all of it would bother me. And the reason atheism would bother me more than anything is this is just me. I get creeped out by atheists.
Yeah.
A friend of mine that does a podcast, he was talking to me the other day about he was going to have an atheist on his program to debate an atheist. I told him I don't talk to atheists. He says, why? And I said, because I get a feeling of evil around atheists. And it's, atheism is a religion in itself. They spend so much time proselytizing that there's no religion, that they become a religion, really, atheism.
And they talk about God a lot.
But with this, let me go through this story a little bit, though, just see what else they say. It says here, the report found that fewer than half of parents with children under the age of 18 place a lot of importance on their children sharing their religious and political beliefs. And by the way, this was done in September and October. White evangelical Protestant parents are 70%. Are more likely than white evangelistic Protestants and black Protestant parents to say it's extremely or very important that the children have similar religious beliefs. If you are a Christian parent, if you're a Christian, and your kids are of another religion, there's a lot of things you don't agree about, like the big thing about like Jesus. Mm-hmm. Because if you're a Christian, you believe to go to heaven, you must accept Jesus. And if your child is of another religion, they're not accepting Jesus, and your grandkids aren't going to be Christians and accept Jesus.
I think a lot
that means
more
they're not going to be in heaven with you.
I think a lot more kids these days are not following their family religion than probably 20 years ago. I think a lot of young people are atheistic because their parent, for one reason, their parents don't make them go to church. Like, my mom made me go. I had to go to church every week. And I'm so grateful she made me go, because it's such a huge part of my life. And my brother and I had to go to church no matter what. And but parents these days don't make their kids go.
Yeah.
And kids are so into TikTok and social media. That's their religion. That's their God.
Yeah.
Getting clicks, getting likes. They don't even think about it. They don't think about, when you're young, you just don't think about your mortality. Maybe when they get older, they'll start thinking about it more.
But
and they probably
I'll
will.
tell you,
but at their age, it's not even on their radar.
But you know what, though? COVID stopped people from going to church.
Yeah.
And church attendance, I'm sure, has not
I don't think
gotten
it's
anywhere
even
near
recovered.
where it was. No.
Because
no.
we have a church that we go to, and they have a live stream on Sundays that I watch sometimes, and it's very sparse still. And before, it was packed.
Well,
and now that they're online, they went online during COVID. And I think because of video, now people just say, I'll just watch it online. Why get dressed and go in the...
Well,
people have just gotten lazy.
It's a big problem. And I got news for you guys. A lot of people won't like hearing this. The United States is a Christian country. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a Christian to be an American. But this is a primarily a Christian country. I know you're supposed to say Judeo-Christian.
Well, it's founded on Christian ideals, for sure.
And we contrary to what Kamala Harris said the other day, we are endowed by the Creator with these unalienable rights that we have.
What did she say?
She left out God. And
in what?
in a speech she gave the other day, and the founding fathers were all Christians. So the God that they were talking about is the God who sent Jesus. Okay,
they try to tell you that they weren't, that they were atheists, but
no, they
that's
weren't.
not true.
No,
if you read
they were Christians.
Any of their writings, and I know you've read many when you were studying them in school, and I've read quite a few. If you read any of Thomas Jefferson's writings or even John Adams, most of what they did was religious based and they had a very strong Christian commitment to their religion and to the church, and that was a huge part. I mean, look at all those documents they made. It mentioned God and all this stuff.
Well, they didn't
it was a huge part of the founding of the country.
They didn't like the Church of England, which said you had to be a member of this church. But that's not being anti-Christian.
Right. They wanted you to have freedom because they didn't want people leaving America to go somewhere else to get that religious freedom.
I'll tell you,
founded on religious freedom.
I'll tell you, obviously it's no surprise that young parents are feeling this way now, but we don't have a Christian leader in this country. We used to have Christian leaders, Jerry Falwell. There's a long list of people. A
lot of them have fallen from grace,
or they're dead, and there are no mainstream religious leaders at a national level like there always were.
Who could do it, but he's not. He's kind of, everybody knows who he is. Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron could do that. Him and Tim Tebow.
He kind of does, Tim Tebow. He does stuff. He's got an interview show now, and he does things. He's on YouTube. He's affiliated with a church somewhere. I think he lives in New York, which is where he's from. And someone like him or Tim Tebow, you're right, are very well known, could definitely lead the next Christian revival. But the minute they talk or say anything, but this isn't new. This happened to Jesus too. I mean, and he talked about it. The minute they talk, they get, people make fun of them and try to make them out to be kooks. And Jesus told the apostles this was going to happen to them. You're going to get attacked in my name and this and stuff. I mean, he was crucified. So they were all martyred except St. John. So it happened to them. It's happened throughout time. People have been killed or mocked or ridiculed over religion. I don't think that would stop Kirk Cameron, but somebody like him or, well known like that, or Jim Caviezel, he's pretty well known. He's a big Catholic. I don't know. You're right. It would be nice to have a really strong Christian leader.
There isn't one. And that's why this is happening. That's going on right here. We don't have like a Christian coalition organization like we used to. And
we need one.
I know we're going to hear.
Maybe you can lead one.
Yeah, I know we're going to hear from people that tell us about this or tell us about. We don't have like a Pat Robertson type leading Christians anymore in this country. We're
not like we did in the 80s and 90s.
There's always been a religious leader in this country. Yeah. And there isn't now, and that's why this is happening.
Like a Billy Graham type.
Yeah, all this gender.
He was big.
All this gender stuff and everything is because there's no.
Could you imagine if Billy Graham
anymore.
was alive? And I watch a lot of his sermons on YouTube and read his books. Can you imagine if Billy Graham was alive today? He was, to me, the biggest Christian religious leader,
in this country,
biggest televangelist.
Oh yeah,
and a very good guy, very well known. Preached to presidents and gave huge, rallies like Trump and stadiums and all this. What would he say about all this going on? Could you imagine what he would say about all this transgender stuff?
I don't even think he'd be able to understand it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I can't even understand it, Well, listen, we're all out of time for today, but we will be back next time. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will talk to you next time.